We'll get close. We'll definitely finish it on Thursday and probably get a little bit into Harry Potter. I don't know how much. Today I'm thinking, well, unless I get all bogged down, we should get to the chapter, The Steward and the King, which is chapter 5 in book 6. So we're going to pick up, hopefully you watched the 2 videos I sent out whenever that was, last week. It seems like a month ago to me. Covering the material that we would have covered in class on Thursday. I'll probably, as we're going forward, make some jumps back to some of that material because it's all linked together. So I want to pick up on 878. Last name? LaCroix. 878 in the last debate. This is about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. About 7 or 8 pages in. Okay? And this is when the debate really begins, so to speak. So, to set it up, the battle for Minas Tirith has been fought and won. I'll just pick up here and then get back to that. So, Gandalf says, when the so-called council or debate, if you want, begins, Gandalf says, "My lords, listen to the words of the steward of Gondor before he died. You may triumph on the fields of the Pelennor for a day, but against the power that has now arisen, there is no victory." Okay? So, what's he mean? Listen to the words again. You may triumph on the fields of the Pelennor for a day, but against the power that has now arisen, there is no victory. Now, that was Denethor's kind of dying words. What did he mean? I mean, they won a fairly decisive battle outside Minas Tirith, the Battle of Pelennor Fields. How did they win that, though? So if you got if you've got Gondor, let's say Mordor is over here. Here's Gondor. Here's Minas Tirith, we'll say. It's got seven layers, wall out front. The Battle of Pelennor is out here. You got Anduin, etc. Is it just the forces of Minas Tirith repelling the forces of Mordor? Pure and simple. No, it's not. Because when the battle reaches its climax, essentially, 2 things happen almost simultaneously. Okay? Remember when the captain of the 9 comes, bangs on essentially the gate of Minas Tirith, they break the gate open, first time it's ever happened, and you got Gandalf sitting there on Shadowfax and says, "You shall not pass, blah, 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 blah." Okay? Why does the captain of the 9, the Witch King of Angmar, is his other name, why does he leave at that point? Because they hear off in the distance 2 things going on. One, some damn rooster in Minas Tirith, signaling it's a new day, it's a new dawn, it's a new beginning. And it's answered by horns from the north, the riders of the Rohirrim. So they come in, they deflect some of the attention, right? Meanwhile, what starts sailing up the River Anduin? Or who starts sailing up the River Anduin? Aragorn. And Aragorn and the Dunedain from the north. And what is it with them at least part of the way? The dead. Aragorn goes to the paths of the dead to get to get those who died thousands of years ago in a previous battle to fulfill their oath that they swore to Elendil and Isildur that they broke. So they get all the forces down here at Pelargir to abandon ship, so Aragorn could take the ship, sails up, and right at the most opportune moment, what does he unfurl and have flown up the mast. It's a flag. What's on the flag? Anybody know? It's the indication of the house of Isildur, house of Elendil. It's the flag that can only be flown by an heir to the throne of Gondor. Okay? So when this flag comes up, until this flag comes up, what do the forces of Minas Tirith and Gondor think about these ships that they see arriving? Reinforcements for Mordor. Because these are like pirate ships. Okay, these are the forces of Mordor normally. And then suddenly this literally a white flag, gets flown up that has, or a flag that has a white tree surrounded by 7 stars. And that tells them immediately, not the forces of Mordor, this is the future king of Gondor, if everything works out all right. Okay? So, the riders of the north, sailors from the south, so to speak, hammer, anvil, Mordor in between. All right? You can triumph on the fields of the Pelennor for a day, but against the power that is now risen, there is no victory. Why is there no victory? Gandalf goes on and says, the stones of seeing do not lie. What are the stones of seeing? The Palantir, or Palantiri. Several of you on the quiz put down the plural, Palantiri. The Palantir. What is the Palantir in modern English? Television. It means far seeing. Okay? Tele, far, vision, sight. Okay? So, what does it mean they don't lie? Sauron can't make someone see something that isn't real if they look into the Palantir and are weaker than Sauron. What does Pippin see when he looks into the Palantir from Orthanc? He sees Sauron. Okay? What does Denethor see? He sees wave upon wave upon wave of Sauron's forces. He sees Sauron's armies pent up inside Mordor, just waiting to be set loose. It's not a false sight. In other words, he's not seeing false images. He's seeing armies that are really there. What does he infer from that? We're goners. There's no way we can win this. Okay? So, Gandalf says, and not even the Lord of Barad-dûr can make them do so, that is, make them lie. He can, maybe by his will, choose what things shall be seen by weaker minds. What did Denethor obviously think he was capable of doing? Same with Saruman. That they could look into the Palantir and they could see what they wanted to see. But always we're told, if more than one is looking into a Palantir, okay, so you have 2, the stronger of the 2 will force the weaker to see what he or she wants, the weaker to see. Okay? Denethor wasn't as strong as Sauron. So, he goes on. Nonetheless, it cannot be doubted that when Denethor saw great forces arrayed against him in Mordor, and more still being gathered, he saw that which truly is. What's Gandalf's point? Hardly has our strength sufficed to beat off the first great assault. That is, even with these forces, we barely won. Barely. First assault. This is like a skirmish. Has the war for Middle-earth been decisively won? No, it hasn't. This is just a little battle. The next will be greater. I mean, you read that passage, this is not an easy win by any means. The next will be greater, that is the next assault. This war, then, is without final hope as Denethor perceived. Notice the terminology. The war is without final hope. What does he mean? How do you win a war? Any war. Military means. That's how wars are won. Wars can be ended not by military means. It can be ended by negotiation. Throughout history, those don't tend to work out all that well. Usually it's got to be one side totally defeats another. And negotiations come after total surrender. He's saying we're not going to win by having more tanks, more jets, more nukes, etc. Victory cannot be achieved by arms, whether you sit here to endure siege after siege or march out to be overwhelmed beyond the river. The final debate, or the last debate, what's the debate? What do we do now? Do we sit here, build up Fortress Gondor, repair the fences, repair the walls, add more armaments, draft more soldiers? That's one thing. Or do we march out and attack? Do we play defense or do we play offense? Either way, you're involved in what? Military adventures of some sort. Okay? So, you have only a choice of evils. Prudence would counsel you to strengthen such strong places as you have, and there await the onset. Put this in modern terms. Gondor is Ukraine. Mordor is Russia. Prudence would say what? Build up your defenses. Okay? And I use those two intentionally. Why? Militarily, Ukraine will never defeat Russia. Just never. For the simple reason they don't have the manpower. Russia's got a couple 100 million people. What's Ukraine have? 50? 60? It'd be like, take nukes out of the picture. Just no more nukes. It'd be like the United States going to war against China. We'd be goners. Why? 1.6 billion people versus 330 million. I mean, just throw wave after wave after wave after wave. Yeah, we'll kill a lot, but not going to win. That's his point. Okay? So, he says, for so shall a time before your end be made a little longer. You could build up your defenses, but what is eventually going to happen? You will lose. All right? So, Imrahil, so you want us to retreat. Gandalf, that would be no new counsel. In other words, what you just said, that's what Denethor has been doing all these years. He's been building up the defenses. I said that would be prudent. What's another word for prudent? Wise. Prudence is wisdom. He says that would be wise. That would be what people would expect a wise person to do. I do not counsel prudence or wisdom. I said victory could not be achieved by arms. I still hope for victory. So if it's not going to be achieved by arms, how is it going to be achieved? Frodo. Not arms, right? Not. For into the midst of all these policies comes the ring of power, the foundation of Barad-dûr, and the hope of Sauron. He says, y'all know enough about what I'm talking about, and you know what our plan was. In other words, you know Frodo and the ring are beyond our help at this point. That is, our actual help. Okay? So, he says, if Sauron regains the ring, that's it. In fact, he doesn't just kind of say, well, we think that's it, maybe somebody will be able to defeat him later on. He says, if Sauron regains the ring, no one can foresee good or light or beauty or truth or justice or, apple pie and mama ever being around again in Middle-earth. His victory will be total, right? He says, but if it's destroyed, then he will fall. And his fall will be so low that none can foresee his arising ever again. He will be nothing but a mere spirit of malice that gnaws itself in the shadows. Why will it gnaw itself? Because he'll think, I was a damn fool. So, he goes on. And so a great evil of this world will be removed. will evil be removed? No. This is why I always, when I do this class early on, I mentioned George Bush's speech to Congress September 20th, 2001, where he announced the Great War on Terror and said, the goal of this Great War on Terror will be to remove terror from the world. Utterly asinine. You cannot remove terror from the world. Why? As long as someone has something you want, there will be terror in the world. I want your phone. Give it to me. No, I don't want to give it to you. Boom! There's terror. How does that end? One person left standing. A great evil, okay, will be removed. Notice Tolkien doesn't just drop it there. Why not? He's a realist writing fantasy escapist literature. Other evils there are that may come. For Sauron is himself but a servant or emissary. It is not our part to master all the tides of the world, but to do what is in us for the succor of those years wherein we are set, uprooting the evil in the fields that we know, so that those who live after may have clean earth to till. What does he mean? I mean, Gandalf is talking to them and saying, our job is to do what? But Tolkien wants us to apply this, I think, to our lives. It's not our lives to stop Sauron from getting the ring, because that's not real. It is their job to do that. What is not their job? To figure out what's going to happen in Lothlorien 100 years from now. Or to figure out what's going to happen in the Shire 20 years from now. Similarly, if you take this and apply it, it's our job to figure out what? The solution to the problems we face today. We, Murfreesboro, Tennessee, United States, the West, the world. What are the problems facing us today, not 100 years from now? Because Tolkien says, Gandalf says, we don't know what those problems will be 100 years from now. We don't know what those problems will be 50 years from now. Why? Because what we do today may or may not cause or allow other problems to arise. So we take care of the problems we have now, and we leave the future generations with the problems they have. What's the problem we have now that previous generations haven't addressed? As an example. An economic one. Every one of you, if you're working, you're paying Social Security taxes. There's nothing in the quote-unquote Social Security fund. It's just a big old giant IOU. Why? Because that goes in there and it goes out to the other parts of the government. It's been that way for the last 40 years or so. I mean, since I first started voting in 1980, we're going to solve the problem of Social Security. Like hell you are. But until it is solved, the next, not your generation, like my kids' generation, and probably not even if they have kids, their kids, your kids' generations. If it's not, it's like your grandchildren are still going to be facing this problem. That's his point. New evils arise. We need to solve the things that we have and that we have the power to. Just like Gandalf said to Frodo back in the Shadow of the Past. When Frodo says, I wish that need not have happened in my day. And Gandalf says, so does everyone who lives through this kind of thing. Our part is to do what? To use such time as we have to face our problems. Okay? So, he goes on. Sauron knows all this. Sauron knows if the ring's destroyed, he's a goner. Sauron also knows if he gets the ring, he'll reign eternally. And he also knows that there are some here who can wield the ring. For do I not guess rightly, Aragorn, you've shown yourself to him in the Stone of Orthanc? Remember, before Gandalf takes Pippin and heads off to Minas Tirith, he leaves the stone with Aragorn. Why? Who made the stones? The men of Western Essa. Who did they quote-unquote belong to? kings of Gondor. Future king, it's yours. Aragorn, yep, I did. Before I rode from the Hornburg, I deemed that the time was right. Okay, when he says before I rode from the Hornburg, he means after the Battle of Helm's Deep, after Isengard was conquered by the Ents and stuff, after Gandalf and Pippin leave to go down to Minas Tirith, as Aragorn is getting ready to go to the paths of the dead, like the day before that, that's when he showed himself to Sauron, okay? He says, too seldom has he been challenged since he returned to his tower. If I had foreseen how swift would be his onset, I might not have dared to do it. So, and we're going to find out later, what did Sauron see when Aragorn revealed himself? He saw what Aragorn wanted him to see. He sees Aragorn as what? Strider and stained, filthy clothing? No. He sees Aragorn as Dunedain, Elfstone, Elisar, heir of Isildur, Elendil's heir. Sauron sees Aragorn as future king of Gondor and the one who is carrying the sword that was broken. Remember this? You know, Sauron's sitting there like this. Yeah, he remembers it. It cut his finger off. That shows us what?
Aragorn is more powerful than the Saurons.
In one sense, yes. Or maybe another way of putting this, Aragorn is the rightful heir and user of the Palantir. So he has more power over it than Sauron does. Sauron is one of these. He's one of those supernatural beings like Gandalf, like the Balrog, like Lúthien's mother, like Saruman and the other wizards. He is a Maya, okay? So just in that sense, he's more powerful than Aragorn, okay? But the Palantir belonged to Aragorn. So, Eomer says, 879 at the bottom, but how is this? All is vain, you say, if he has the ring. Why should he think it not vain to assail us if we have it? Why would he say, well, shoot, I'm not going to attack them because if one of them has the ring, I'm a goner? He doesn't know, Gandalf says. Okay? His doubt will be growing. His eyes now straining towards us. That is, he's trying to figure out where the ring is and who may have it. And Gandalf says, and therein lies all our hope. Where do they know Frodo is? Or let me rephrase that. Where do they know Frodo had been?
Gondor, going to Mordor.
Keep going. Be more specific. One of the questions on the quiz, and it's one of the reasons I gave everybody a free extra point, if you haven't seen the email. I said one of the quizzes, the second quiz was something like, where are Frodo and Sam and the men, in what region? It was too broad. Needed to be more specific. They're in Ithilien, okay? Where did Gollum essentially tell Faramir he was going to lead Frodo and Sam up the stairs of Cirith Ungol? So when Gandalf has a chance to talk with Faramir in that whole interview scene, and Faramir with Denethor, and Denethor wishes he were dead and Boromir was alive and all that kind of stuff. They now know Frodo's alive, he still has the ring, and they're going in the back door, so to speak, to Gondor, to Mordor. So down here, Gandalf and the others are all up here. What's he saying we need to do? We need to draw his attention, his eye, way up here north, so that he's not even thinking about the south of Mordor. And get them to do what with all the vast armies that are in Mordor? Send them out the Black Gate. Okay? So, Gandalf says, page 880. We cannot, his doubt will be growing even as we speak here. Therein lies all our hope. We cannot achieve victory by arms, but by arms we can give the ring bearer his only chance. As Aragorn has begun, so we must go on. What does he mean, as Aragorn has begun? As Aragorn challenged him. What do bullies never like? They don't like to be challenged. Aragorn challenged him. Gandalf says, now we need to all go challenge him. Like, we're all going to go out there, middle finger at Sauron. We must call out his hidden strength so that he shall empty his land. We must march out to meet him at once. That is, before we can even get reinforcements. He will take that bait in hope and in greed. Why? Because he will think one of us has the ring. And think that he can suddenly wield it. See, one of the things about the ring, well, a couple of things. One, it only gives you power according to your stature. Stature doesn't merely mean physical size. That is part of it. It also means what you have inside. Okay? What we're going to talk about in the Harry Potter novels as intestinal fortitude, character. Aragorn and Gandalf, they got lots of intestinal fortitude. I mean, Gandalf's been dead and he's alive again. You don't get more than that, really. Aragorn has a lot. Éomer has a lot. Prince Imrahil has a lot, etc. Frodo, not so much. So he says, Sauron will think one of us has gotten a little too big for his britches. So he will say, so he pushes out his neck too soon and too far. Let him come on. There I will crush him. We must walk open-eyed into that trap. So if you know you're walking into a trap, what does that say about you mentally or planning-wise, militarily, strategic-wise? Fool. Opposite of wisdom. For my lords, it may well prove that we ourselves shall perish utterly in a black battle far from the living land, so that even if Barad-dûr be thrown down, we won't know. And what's the flip side of that? And if it's not thrown down, their deaths will be what? Useless. And no one will ever know. Now go back for a moment to Aragorn's little conversation with Éowyn, Éomer's sister. Just before he goes to the paths of the dead, she's like, no, don't do that. You're throwing yourself away. And she's like, you do not want to throw yourself away. She's in love with him. All right? Well, let me ride with you if you're going to do this. She makes this thing, I'm a shield maiden, etc. Aragorn says, you can't. Your duty is to stay here. Why does she say Aragorn says that? A lot of people, a lot of feminist critics really take Tolkien to task because they think he doesn't have strong female characters. Éowyn's pretty damn strong. So is Galadriel. I know, 2 out of what? 1,000? Why does she say Aragorn is saying that? Oh, you're just a woman. Your place is at home to take care of the kids and the infirm and the old and the aged and make up the beds and cook the meals, blah, blah, blah. Does Aragorn ever say that? No, he doesn't. Why does he say it's her duty to stay there? Because she accepted that duty. He says, if you ride with me, someone else, another captain, will have to stay here and do this duty, do this job. In other words, this isn't unimportant. In fact, he's saying this is not less important than riding off to battle. And she says, yeah, but if you ride off to battle, you can win great glory and renown. And stories will be sung. And everyone says, but if we all lose, she goes, then it won't matter because then we'll get burned in our homes, etc. anyways. Right? I mean, if they lose this battle, then the homes are going to be overrun and the people there are going to get slaughtered. And Aragorn says, does that make what they do defending those homes any less glorious? No, it doesn't. And what Tolkien is doing there is he's drawing this ideology out of Eowyn. And the ideology is all about personal fame and glory. She is an Anglo-Saxon warrior princess, because that was the Anglo-Saxon mentality. Personal fame, that's the only thing that lasts. You die, you're up, that's it. But people will still remember you later in songs and such. And Aragorn makes the point that if we all die, there aren't going to be any more songs. In other words, there won't be any glory, period. Okay? So, back to here. He says, we might just die utterly, but we still have to do this. Is he saying it is therefore meaningless? No. If anything, it is more meaningful because they will be offering themselves essentially as what? Sacrifices. This is the altar of sacrifice. They're putting themselves on it. Why? So that all of Sauron's attention is drawn away to give Frodo that 1% chance of achieving victory. Okay? So, they do leave a little force behind to protect the city. Chapter 10, the Black Gate opens. They march out towards Mordor, and as they go, they got, heralds out in front blowing trumpets, beware, lo, the king is coming, etc., etc. Right before the Black Gate, they meet the mouth of Sauron, who's also called the emissary or the messenger of Sauron. And what does he do that makes Pippin go, ah? He holds up a couple things. One, Bilbo's and Frodo's mithril coat. Two, a gray elven cloak. Pippin, ah! Why? Those were Frodo's. Pippin immediately jumps to the conclusion. They have that, Frodo's dead. Now, he doesn't say Frodo's dead. He says they have him, and he's being tortured by Sauron. He talks a bit. Gandalf says, name your terms, page 890. Okay? What does name your terms mean?
What do you want in
Yeah.
exchange?
Is it in exchange?
I don't think they'd give him back.
Well, it's not in exchange. It's not that kind of terms. What is it? Name your terms means we surrender. What are the conditions that we have to sign to? All right? It's similar to when the chapter The Voice of Saruman, Gandalf, Theoden, Legolas, Gimli, Aragorn, etc., are on that platform. They're listening to Saruman talk and everything. And finally, when Theoden doesn't reply the way Saruman hopes he will, he then appeals to Gandalf. And he puts everything he has out there. I mean, he just uses all kinds of sugary, flowery language. And we're told no one within hearing wasn't moved. That is, everyone was moved by his words. And they all thought, Gandalf's going to give. Gandalf's going to go up. They're going to exchange greetings, and we will all be left outside, forgotten. And then Gandalf laughs. Okay? So, name your terms. And he gives his terms. 890. Name the terms, but those nearby saw the anguish in his face, and now he seemed an old and wizened man, crushed, defeated at last. They did not doubt that he would accept. This is like, you're almost at the bleakest point. He gives the terms. Okay? And Gandalf, essentially, not literally, but he, in essence, laughs in his face. Says, we don't accept your terms. These we'll take back. He takes the Mithril coat, he takes the other stuff, okay, and casts aside his cloak, shows that he's no longer Gandalf the Grey, etc. Says, get you gone, and all hell breaks loose. The quote-unquote trap is sprung. But it's not really a trap, because if you know it's a trap, it's not a trap. This is why I said, it's like almost an altar of sacrifice. They've put themselves out there. Okay? And the chapter ends with who being focused on, or who being thought of, or who narrating. Pippin. Why is Pippin there and not Merry? Okay, so you have Legolas and Gimli because they're representing the elves, right? Aragorn because, once a future king kind of a thing. Well, not once, but future king kind of a thing. Gandalf, his greatest task, right? Remember, he was sent back from the dead until his task was complete. What do we now know his task is? Conversation he had with Denethor. Remember talking with Denethor about what being a steward means? And he essentially says, so this is Gondor, you can say. What's Gandalf's stewardship over? Full freaking whiteboard. He says, don't you realize I too am a steward? And he says, I will not have failed in my task completely if in the morning one flower is blooming. Denethor is steward of this. He's like, buddy, don't give me guff. Your stewardship is very, very small compared to mine. Okay? So, Gandalf's there because all of Middle-earth is his stewardship. Keep in mind, a steward rules in place of someone else. So, we see Pippin. Merry's been wounded in battle. Frodo's been wounded in battle of sorts. The Morgul blade back on Weathertop. Okay. Sam hasn't yet. Pippin hasn't been wounded in battle. Okay. So Pippin goes off also to represent the hobbits. And Pippin's thinking about what's happening as all hell's breaking loose, orcs and things everywhere. A troll falls on him and he stabs upward, kind of like Sam back in Cirith Ungol and Shelob's lair, stabbing upward on the spider. In the last two paragraphs, so it ends as I guessed it would. How's it ending as he guessed it would? I'm dying, we're all dying, darkness. His thought said, even as it fluttered away, and it laughed a little within him ere it fled. That is, this thought kind of chuckles before it leaves him, almost gay that is happy, joyful it seemed to be casting off at last all doubt and care and fear. Like, the hell with it. It's just going to die. And then, even as it winged away into forgetfulness, it heard voices. That is this thought, notice, that he's talking about. The thought goes away, and then the thought hears things, meaning his mind. He hears voices, as if crying from some forgotten world far above. The eagles are coming, the eagles are coming. And he immediately thinks, Bilbo. Anybody know why?
Because Bilbo rode the eagles after.
Bilbo rode the eagles in The Hobbit, but also in the Battle of Five Armies in The Hobbit. The eagles come, they're the cavalry at the end of a cowboy and Indian movie from the 1930s. They're the forces of good who swoop in at the final moment and achieve victory. Okay? But he's thinking, nope, that's not my story. This is my story, and I'm dead. And he passes out. Book 6. Now, when The Return of the King is published, it's about 5 months after Two Towers. Remember how Two Towers ends? I mean, the very end. What does Sam discover? What does Sam realize? I really am Samwise, meaning half-wise. He left Frodo thinking Frodo was dead. He thought, I've got to take the ring. I've got to become the ring bearer. I must achieve the quest. And then he realizes, because he hears orcs talking, Frodo's not dead, he's just mostly dead. He's been poisoned. And now he's captured by the orcs. And the orcs are going to take him to the enemy. Sam thinks he's effed everything up. The book ends, and now you have to wait 5 months to figure out what's going to happen to Sam. You finally get the book in your hands, November of 55, I think it is. And Tolkien doesn't pick up with Frodo and Sam immediately. Oh, no. He's got to go all the way back to Gondor. Chapter 1, the Tower of Cirith Ungol. Now we go back to Sam, okay? He puts on the ring. He sees stuff with it. He becomes, more aware and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to skip a bit. Takes it off. He sees Mount Doom, bottom of 899. He sees Cirith Ungol off to his left. What had been the Tower of the Moon, built by the men of Westernessa. He thinks about all of that. And then bottom of 900. He goes back to the ring, thinking. He doesn't put it on. But there is no comfort there, only dread and danger. No sooner had he come inside of Mount Doom, burning far away, than he is aware of a change in his burden. He's got the ring around his neck, and suddenly it's like this anvil hanging around him. As it drew nearer the great furnaces where it had been shaped, the ring's power grew, and it became, the narrator tells us, more fell, untamable, save by some mighty will. More fell, more perilous, more death-inducing, so to speak. Untamable, unless you have a mighty will. It's not literally what it says, but it's close. Saved by some mighty will. What is Sam's mighty will? Because he does tame it. Unlike Boromir, who gives in to the temptation, give it to me, it should be mine anyways, 901. Sam thinks, I've got two choices. Forbear the ring, never put it on, or claim it. And challenge the power that sat in its dark hold. Don't or do. Wild fantasies arise in his mind. He sees himself as Samwise the Strong, cleaning out the crap of Mordor and making it turn into a valley of beauty and delight. The area I grew up in, now called Silicon Valley, when I was growing up was called the Valley of Heart's Delight because of all the orchards. Apple orchards, pear orchards, plum orchards, apricot orchards. It was just beautiful from one mountain range to the other mountain range. Now it's just concrete everywhere, okay? He wanted to take all that concrete and replace it with flowers and trees and such. In that hour of trial, it was the love of his master that helped most to hold him firm. But also, so that's one thing, but also deep down in him lives still unconquered his plain hobbit sense. That plain hobbit sense, that's the mighty will. What was his plain hobbit sense? He knew in the core of his heart that he was not large enough to bear such a burden, even if such visions were not a mere cheat to betray him. What does that mean? The one small garden of a free gardener was all his need and due, not a garden swollen to a realm. Know thyself. Outside the Oracle of Delphi in Greece, you can still go to Delphi today. Outside the Oracle of Delphi, on a tablet was inscribed the words, know thyself. According to Plato, discussion about Socrates and the dialogues of Plato, Socrates was told by the gods, you are the wisest person who has ever lived. He was like, get out of here. Can't be. That's why he goes around and starts asking people questions. And that's why the dialogues exist. He's asking people questions drawing wisdom and truth and such out of them because he's trying to find someone who is wiser than what the gods say he is. Okay? Why is he the wisest of all? Because he knows he's not wise. Extreme humility. Know that he knows who he is. Sam knows who he is. And because he knows who he is, he can't be tempted to be something else. We're going to see a similar idea show up in the Harry Potter novels. Okay? Because we are going to see somebody who at one point in life is very, very tempted. And only eschews that temptation after some bad stuff happens. That's what enables Sam to turn down the temptation. It's two things. His love for Frodo and his knowing who he is. Similar to when Frodo turns down the temptation in the barrow that the Barrow-wight has control over to leave his friends. He sees them all bound, and Frodo's thinking, I've got the ring. I can escape. They'll understand. But then his hobbit sense and his love for the others kicks in. So, Sam thinks, if I put the ring on now, he'll know, etc. Okay? So, we're going to skip a bunch again. He hears the orcs, he goes after them, he says he's a great elf lord, he puts the ring back on, not to claim it, but to... He finds a bunch of dead orcs, he goes into the guard room of the orcs, and they've killed each other, all of them. He starts to sing a song, for some reason. He hears a noise in the roof, in the ceiling above. He finds Frodo, rescues him. Frodo asks, page 910, am I dreaming? No, you're not dreaming. It's me. Okay? Frodo says, skipping a bunch, page 911, they've taken everything, Sam. Everything I had. Do you understand? Like, smacks him metaphorically across the face. Wake up, Sam. They've got it. We've failed. The quest has failed, Sam. Even if we get out of here, we can't escape. And that can mean two different kinds of escape. He can mean even if we get out of here, meaning this room in Mordor, we can't escape, meaning Middle Earth. Sauron will have the ring. Only elves can escape. Away, away out of Middle Earth, far away over the sea, if even that is wide enough to keep the shadow out. Not everything, Mr. Frodo. It hasn't failed. Not yet. In other words, we probably will, but I took it. Okay? Frodo, you've got it? You've got it here? Sam, you're marvel. Give it to me, give it to me. He doesn't yet say, my precious, but chill. All right. He pulls the ring out. And he says, but when we're in Mordor, if you want, I can help you carry it. How does Frodo interpret that?
I want it.
No, you can't. It's mine, Says, no, you won't, you thief. See, anyone who gets the ring from someone who's had the ring is automatically a thief. The ring has that effect. The ring makes you think that way. Frodo apologizes. What have I said? What have I done? Gee, where else have we heard that? Frodo, come back. What have I said? What have I done? Boromir says. Forgive me. After all you have done, he says, but I must carry the burden to the end. It can't be altered. You can't come between me and this doom. Okay? Sam's like, it's cool, it's fine, I can still help you, etc. So, they get dressed up as orcs, they make their way on, and they use Galadriel's file to get past the hidden watchers. chapter 2. They go into Mordor itself. We're going to skip a bunch. Go to page 918. So, Frodo's tired. He says, I can't carry this mail shirt. I can't wear this mail shirt anymore. Not in my present state. Even my mithril coat seemed heavy. So, Sam agrees, lets Frodo take it off and such. And he says to Frodo, I'd carry you on my back if I could, let it go then. So Frodo takes the cloak off, takes off the orc mail, puts the coat back on. Sam gives Frodo his cloak. He's still wearing the elven cloak. So Sam's going to put on an orc cloak because the orcs took Frodo's elven cloak. Sam's going to put on an orc cloak, give Frodo his cloak. Why? He'll blend in. That's what the orc cloaks do. Plus, they're lighter. Frodo immediately feels lighter, like his spirits are lifted by putting on the elven cloak. And then Frodo mentions water. As I lay in prison, Sam, I tried to remember the Brandywine and Woody Inn and the water running through the mill at Hobbiton. I can't see them now. It's like those memories have been wiped out. Sam, there now, Mr. Frodo, here's you talking about water. If only the lady could see us or hear us, I'd say to her. Okay, now think about how he's saying this. They're in the land where it's dark, it's dry, they're not had water. Your ladyship, all we want is light and water. Just clean water and plain daylight, better than any jewels, begging your pardon. The begging your pardon is like, please. Okay? If she were here, he says, I would say this. What is this kind of like? It's almost like a prayer. Okay? They start off again. Black Rider comes over him. Frodo can sense it. Why? He's got the ring. They hide. The Black Rider goes past. Page 919. They stand up, they stare away in wonder. Away to their left, southward, against the sky that was turning gray. So they're like, southward is this direction. They're now facing this direction, or facing west. So south is on their left. They're facing west, and what do they see? Against the sky that was turning gray, the peaks and high ridges of the great, south, they're facing south. The great range began to appear dark and black visible shapes, page 919. Light was growing behind them. Slowly, it crept towards the north. There is battle far above in the high places of the air. How is there battle far above in the high places of the air? I think this is Tolkien's Catholicism. He says in one of those letters, I think I've mentioned it before, that The Lord of the Rings is fundamentally a philosophical and religious work. He doesn't explain how. He says, but more so in the revising than in the writing. That is, he did not set out to write a religious and philosophical work. It became that way in the revising. New Testament, Paul talks about we wage battle not against creatures of flesh and blood, but against powers, thrones, principalities, dominions of the air. Okay? People had to wait till 1977 when Tolkien's son published the Silmarillion to get an idea of what some of this could mean. The Valar that I've mentioned before, the gods, the chief of those is Manwë. He's the god of the air. Okay? Battle far above in the high spaces of the air. What is the battle?
Is it to do with the Eagles?
Not here, not yet. This is the battle's going to be described in the next couple sentences. You've got the battle of Mordor's forces, the dark and the clouds, and not Mordor's forces, the light and the clear air. Waging war, so to speak. Are they literally waging war? No. But the clouds are being pushed back by the wind. The narrator is suggesting that in Sam's mind, I think this is supposed to be Sam's mind, that there's this battle going on. Okay? And what is happening? The light is defeating the dark. So, the billowing clouds of Mordor were being driven back, their edges tattering, as a wind out of the living world came up and swept the fumes and smokes towards the dark land of their home. See, the living world is the west. I don't mean the far west. I mean Gondor, Minas Tirith, Rivendell, Lothlorien, all that. The dead world is Mordor. The clouds, the darkness of the death is being pushed back. So, under the lifting skirts of the dreary canopy, dim light leaked into Mordor. Because remember, Mordor is shaped kind of like a big E, okay? And these are mountains. They're facing, looking off to the south down here, and it's like light has crept between the crest of the mountains and the clouds that are being pushed back. Look at it, Mr. Frodo, look at it. The wind's changed, Sam says. Something's happening. He's not having it all his own way. His darkness is breaking up out in the world. There. I wish I could see what is going on. Okay? And then the narrator gives us this comment. Meanwhile, it was the morning of the 15th of March, and over the Vale of Anduin the sun was rising above the eastern shadow, and the southwest wind was blowing. Theoden lay dying on the Pelennor fields. And because we've already read that, we already know what is happening. So Theoden lay dying, and what happens simultaneously to his lying dying? Leave him alone. He's my kin. I will hinder you if I may. Fool, no man may hinder me and live. Who says that? The Witch King of Angmar. Who is saying, leave him alone, he is my kin, I will hinder you if I may? The name given in the book when the person takes on this persona, Durnhelm. Old English words, they mean secret protector. Dern means secret. Helm is a protector. A helmet is a protector for the head. Okay? Who is Durnhelm? Eowyn, no living man. Living woman. Does Durnhelm, aka Eowyn, do it all on her own? No. Because Mary sees her, who's been thrown off the horse too. Mary sees her and thinks she can't die alone. And Mary crawls forward towards the Witch King of Angmar and does what? With his little sword, he stabs him. I've had both knees replaced and multiple knee surgeries. I know a lot about knee pain. In the back of the knee. Why does that do anything to him? Two reasons. One, no living man. He's a hobbit. Two, where'd he get the sword? Anybody remember? The barrow. Tom Bombadil pulled it out from the barrow when he killed the Barrow Wight. And then Tom Bombadil gives them a history lesson. He looks at the swords and says, look at that. These swords were forged by the men of Westernessa for what purpose? To fight the Witch King of Angmar. Those swords were woven with spells against this particular guy and his forces. It's that reason, and because Mary's not a man, that his sword has any effect at all. If it were just any old sword, I've got swords at home, if it were any of those swords, would have torn his cloak. Ooh, big deal, Wouldn't have hurt him. This is what's going on. Okay? So, the Witch King of Angmar, Sauron's right-hand man, King Thraith, had to get one of those in there. his right hand wraith, so to speak, what happened to him? Blinks out of existence, almost. The voice of a Nazgul cries out, but this cry no longer held any terror for them. It was a cry of woe and dismay, ill tidings for the Dark Tower. The voice of the Nazgul, that was the Dark Rider, help, as he's destroyed, so to speak. Sam, what did I tell you? The war's going well, said Shagrat, but Gorbek, he wasn't so sure. And then Sam says, come, Mr. Frodo, I've got one thing I wanted, a bit of light. Okay? Enough to help us, and yet I guess it's dangerous too. You turn the page, and you read to the bottom of the next page, and they hear water dripping down. If ever I see the lady again, I will tell her light and now water. So Sam's, boy, if I could see Galadriel, I'd ask her for battle in the skies above. There's a lot more going on than what is just really going on the surface, is my point. It's that Boethian idea, that everything is kind of working out, okay? So, they keep going on. They get not quite captured by orcs, but they fall in with orcs and then get away from them. Skipping a bunch. They realize Gollum's still around. Chapter 3, Mount Doom. Drink a little bit of water. First page of that, about 4 paragraphs down. Frodo's still asleep, and Sam's thinking, looking at where they are and where Mount Doom is, it looks every step of 50 miles. That'll take a week if it takes a day. With Mr. Frodo as he is. Keep in mind, Frodo and Sam don't have legs the length of ours. I mean, they're 3 feet tall at best. So half the step lengths that we have. He shook his head, and as he worked things out, slowly a new dark thought grew in his mind. Never for long had hope died in his staunch heart. Always until now had taken some thought for the return. But the bitter truth came home to him at last. At best, their provision would take them to their goal. They'd have enough food and water to reach Orodruin. And when the task was done, there they would come to an end, alone, houseless, foodless, in the midst of a terrible desert. There could be no return. So that was the job I felt I had to do when I started. Is that what he felt he had to do when he started? When Gandalf plucks him by his shirt collar out the window, brings him into Frodo's study, and says, what are you doing eavesdropping? Oh, I heard about elves and dwarves, and well, you're going to go with Frodo. Me, go and see elves and all. Sam thinks it's a holiday. He's going on vacation. Is that the job I had to do when I started? To help Mr. Frodo to the last step and then die with him? If that is the job, then I must do it. That's not what he thought at the beginning. When did he think that? Because it's before this. Mirror of Galadriel. He looks in the mirror. He sees a bunch of stuff. He sees Frodo lying, looking dead, But he also sees the Shire being torn up, and he thinks, I've got to go back home. And he says, I've got to go back home. What did Galadriel tell him? You can't. And he says, you're right. I have to do it the right way. Mr. Frodo and I go back home together, meaning we achieve the quest and then go back home, or don't go home at all. If that is the job, then I must do it. But I would dearly like to see Bywater again and Rosie Cotton. It's the first time I think we've heard of Rosie Cotton, who Sam will later marry and be like bunnies and have a whole mess of kids. and her brothers and the gaffer and Marigold and all. I can't think somehow that Gandalf would have sent Mr. Frodo on this errand. Okay, first of all, Gandalf didn't send him on this errand. Frodo agreed to twice, or offered to twice. At Bag End, he said, I will leave the Shire, because I do want to destroy the ring, or have it destroyed. And then at the end of the Council of Elrond, he said, I will take the ring, but I don't know the way. So, if there hadn't been any hope of his ever coming back, things all went wrong when he went down in Moria. I wish he hadn't. He would have done something. Unbeknownst to Sam, Gandalf is doing things. Okay? And then you get this paragraph. But even as hope died in Sam, or seemed to die, it was turned to a new strength. Sam's plain hobbit face grew stern, almost grim, as the will hardened in him. The will. That is, that forward movement. I'm going to achieve this. We're going to do this come hell or high water. All right? So, with this new sense of responsibility, what does he do? He's not looking off in the distance. He's not looking at Mount Doom thinking, oh my God, this is 50 miles. And I'm a midget. And on foot. And hungry. And tired. And we're walking in death. Both literally and figuratively. What does he do? Brings his eyes back to the ground, near at hand, we're told, studying the next move. Why does Tolkien include that sentence? What does Frodo ask Gollum just before they enter the Dead Marshes? Anybody remember? How do we shape our path? What's he mean by that? What's the first step? Because if they take a wrong first step, what can happen? They get sucked into one of those little pools. Dead forever. Well, mostly dead forever because they'll become a light maybe later on. What's the studying the next move? How do you get from this point to that 50 miles away goal? You got to take a step. You got to do the first thing that comes next. That's what he means. Sam's thinking, okay, what's the next thing we have to do? And he sees that the distance, that where they are, the ground is all broken and everything. So he says, we got to get back on the road. When my dad and brother and I used to go backpacking, we did, 4 or 5 trips. California coastal range near Santa Cruz and then the high Sierras at Yosemite. One of our trips in Yosemite, we did backwoods. So we followed a trail for part, and then we went off trail and over a couple of ridges. When you're on a known trail, even if it's just like a deer trail, it's not that bad. But when you go off trail and go scrabbling over ridges and stuff, especially Sierras, all granite and everything, especially when you get above the tree line, what, if you're on the normal trail, might take an hour to go 2 or 3 miles. It'd take you an hour to go 500-600 feet because you're scrambling and all that. Sam realizes that. He's like, okay, so it's a week. If we go straight as a crow flies, it's going to take longer unless we find some easier method, and that's taking the roads. What's the problem with taking the roads?
You're being guarded by orcs.
Or you're more likely to come up with orcs or other travelers rather than through the scrub, so to speak. Okay? So, they go back on the roads, and I'm going to skip a bit, 9:37. Taking another rest, 9:37. Sam says, time for another start. They hear a bell. And he tells Sam, I can't manage it, Sam. It's such a weight, meaning the ring. Sam says, let me carry it. I can help. No, stand away. It's mine. I said, be off. And then he tells Sam, right in the middle of that page 937 in this edition, it is too late now, Sam dear. You can't help me in that way again. I am almost in its power now. Meaning, what does Gandalf tell Frodo? Almost one of the first things he says about the ring in the morning after he starts talking about it. A mortal Frodo who possesses the One Ring will in the end be possessed by it. I am almost in its power now. And then he says, I could not give it up. And if you tried to take it, I should go mad. What has Frodo just told us? Barring any unforeseen occurrence, what's going to happen to the quest? It's already failed. I could not give it up, he says. He can't do it. Okay? Frodo is, in one sense, Frodo is a complete and total failure. But there's a reason why Frodo is a complete and total failure. It's the same reason every one of us would be. And any mortal would be. The ring will get control. Period. So, Sam nods. I understand, he says, but we can lighten our load some more. Get rid of everything they don't need. All right? They keep marching. Page 940. Now for the last gaff, says Sam, as he struggles to his feet after they get up from a rest. He bends over Frodo, rouses him. Frodo groans. He can barely get up. He falls once he gets up. And Sam straps Frodo on his back, grabs his arms, holds him like this, and starts plowing on ahead. 941. They reach the foot of the mountain on its northern side. Why on its northern side? So here's Orodruin, because it's way far in the south. So the northern side is here. Barad-dûr, the tower, the dark tower that Sauron is in, is way up here in the north. Because the opening to the, what are called the Sammath Naur, the cracks of doom, are on the north side. Because when Frodo's going to get there and he claims the ring for himself, it's like Sauron has a sudden and immediate bullseye to what is going on. So, Sam carries him. They keep going. 942 at the bottom. They find a path. So they've been scrabbling and then they find a path. Okay, so if you find a path, what does that path mean? What does a path always mean? Somebody's been there and it goes somewhere. It has a destination. So they make their way to the path, and Frodo starts to crawl up it. Okay? Far off in the north, the shadows of Sauron hung, etc. And for a moment, the shadows, the fog, the clouds, whatever, gets blown away, and they can see the tower. Way the hell up here. Okay, this is like elvish sight, so to speak, all right? And Frodo gets a glimpse, or Frodo, let me rephrase it, feels a glimpse of Sauron's eye, and his hand immediately goes to the chain. Sam kneels by him. Frodo says, help me, Sam, help me, help me. That is, keep my hand away from the ring. Okay? Sam does. He picks up Frodo. He brings Frodo's hands around his chest like this, and he holds them to keep Frodo from grabbing the ring. And he starts plugging up that path. Suddenly, middle of 943, a sudden weight smote him. He crashed forward, tearing the backs of his hands that still clasped his master's. He knew what had happened because he hears, "Wicked master! Wicked master! Cheats me! Mustn't go that way, mustn't go places. Give it a go, get it." Sam throws Frodo off, and he's getting ready to. And then he sees Gollum fighting with Frodo. And we're told, 943, very bottom, down, down. Frodo's holding the ring beneath his leather shirt. Down, you creeping thing, and out of my path. Your time is at an end. You cannot betray me or slay me now. And then we get this description. Suddenly, as before under the eaves of the Emyn, Sam saw these two rivals with other vision. That is, he's not seeing them with his eyes. Okay? He's seeing them in some other way, like a vision. A crouching shape, scarcely more than the shadow of a living thing, a creature now wholly ruined and defeated, yet filled with hideous lust and rage. And before it stood stern, untouchable now by pity, a figure robed in white. Robed in white. But at its breast it held a wheel of fire, and out of the fire there spoke a commanding voice. Okay? So 2 questions. 1, why is this figure now untouchable by pity? And 2, what does it mean that out of the wheel of fire there came a commanding voice? Let's do the second question first. Is it the ring speaking? Or is Frodo's voice kind of being channeled like a megaphone through the ring? Or are Frodo and the ring now indistinguishable from each other? Is Frodo now wholly possessed by the ring? Go back to the first part. Untouchable now by pity. Why is Frodo untouchable now by pity? I think the answer to that question answers the second question. I think he is possessed by the ring. The ring is wholly, W-H-O-L-L-Y, evil. There is no good whatsoever in the ring. It is unlike anything in our world. Okay? Just totally, completely evil. If Frodo is possessed by that, then that means Frodo cannot be moved by pity. Frodo cannot be moved by love, concern, empathy for another, because there is none. All the ring cares for is itself. Begone, trouble me no more. If you touch me ever again, you shall be cast yourself into the fire of doom. Remember the oath that Gollum swears in the taming of Smeagol? What does he actually swear to do? And it's, only maybe half of you, both my classes, maybe half got this question right on the quiz. He doesn't mention Frodo at all in his swearing. He doesn't mention hobbits at all. He says he swears to serve the master of the precious. This is where Frodo could have taken a course in contract law. When you sign a contract, you identify yourself. Frodo should have said, let's revise that. Let's say you, Gollum, aka Smeagol, swear to serve the master of the precious, i.e., Mr. Frodo Baggins, heir of Bilbo Baggins, of number 4 Bagshot Row, Bag Inn, the Shire, the West of Middle Earth. What's he just done? Kept identifying who the master of the precious, but he doesn't do that. Why can Gollum plot against Frodo by bringing them to Shelob? Because if Shelob eats Frodo and spits everything else out, then he becomes the master of the precious, Gollum. And then all he has to do is what? Serve himself. Okay? He never actually fails to serve the master of the precious. He doesn't swear to protect the master of the precious. He doesn't swear to, any of these other things. So, and when Frodo accepts that, he says, be careful. By swearing on the precious, it will keep you to this promise. Now, Begone, trouble me no more. If you touch me ever again, you shall be cast yourself into the fire of doom. We could skip what happens with them for a moment and go straight to, I have come, but I do not choose now to do what I came to do. I will not do this deed. The ring is mine. Frodo claims it. Sauron immediately knows, says to himself, oh, shit. Now go back for a moment to Sam. Frodo leaves to go up and claim the ring. Sam doesn't know he's going to claim the ring. And Sam says, now, at last I can deal with you. Pulls his sword out, and Gollum says, don't kill us, don't hurt us with nasty, cruel steel. Let us live, yes, let us live. Just a little longer, lost, we're lost. And when precious goes, we'll die. Yes, die into the dust. And he's picking up the dust, the volcanic dust, and going, dust. What's Gollum just told us? When the ring goes, he'll go. What did the ring or Frodo say? Next time you touch me, you will be cast into the fire of doom. Not you will fall dancing. Okay? Frodo said the ring will hold you to it. Why doesn't Sam kill Gollum? Because deep in his heart there was something that restrained him. He could not strike this thing lying in the dust. Forlorn, ruinous, utterly wretched, he himself, though only for a little while, had borne the ring, and now dimly he guessed the agony of Gollum's shriveled mind and body. Sam has carried the ring for maybe a few hours. He'd worn it for maybe an hour. Gollum had it for 600 years. 500 years minimum. Unable to find, and I find this passage extremely interesting. Sam thinks that Gollum's mind and body, enslaved to the ring, unable to find peace or relief ever in life again. I find two words in there hugely significant and also hugely enigmatic. Why doesn't he just say, unable to find peace or relief ever again? Why is it ever in life again? By having it ever in life again, and not just ever again means finality, right? For all time afterwards. Ever in life again might, and I think this is Tolkien's Catholicism, subconsciously coming out, might mean he might find relief or peace after. Okay? We'll pick up there. I got you almost as far as my first class. I don't know what it is about this one. So we'll definitely finish this on Thursday and probably get a little bit into Harry Potter. I probably won't put the quiz up over the second half of Return of the King until after